And what is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening, and welcome to Talking Ball. Y'all, I am Cass Hargis. That is Jason Dewey. We have a special guest on here tonight, Marshall Leffler of Red River Roundup. We appreciate you being on here, man. I know you do some good stuff up there for Sinlot, northern part of the state. Welcome to the show, dude.
Thanks, man. Look, I'm y'all's biggest fan. I was on early, and I want to be like y'all one day. So yeah, appreciate you let me hang out.
Set your dreams higher. Set your dreams higher.
The bar's pretty low if you're going for that.
We're just here. No, man. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one. I know last week we had some big time matchups. It's already week 8, which the season is flying by. But one district, I guess there's 2 districts that have kind of set themselves apart in the state this year. It's been 9-5A down in New Orleans, the Catholic League, and then 2-5A up in the Monroe area, man. It's like a gauntlet these guys are running through, and that's where we're going to start tonight. We've got Neville going to Ouachita Parish. Neville coming off of a tough loss to Ruston. Ouachita coming off of a tough loss to West Monroe. Neville, Parker Robinson finally feel like he's healthy. I would think now at this point in the season. They got Jamarian Robertson, the running back, that's really good. But this Ouachita Parish offense led by Montrell Connor, going into week 7, they hadn't turned the ball over. They were extremely explosive. Then they run into Ruston and West Monroe back-to-back, lose 2 close ball games. It almost feels like this is a pivot point for both of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Ouachita Lions, they came in super confident at the beginning of this season. And it's funny you bring up Parker Robinson and Montrell Connor. 2 years ago, both of those guys were enrolled at 1A St. Frederick. So,
wow.
Andy Robinson is Parker's dad. He was the head coach there. He's now running the offense at Neville, and Parker's with him. Montrell, of course, his dad played at Mississippi State and played at Ouachita. But whenever between the Andy Robinson, Chip Boulderback, and now Tony Osborne kind of quick transition there in St. Fred's, both of those quarterbacks ended up in 2-5A. So Parker started as a sophomore. His first action was against Ruston in the Bayou Jam last year in the rain. And he's been literally getting better just about every week since that. Good coaching staff on that side of the ball. Obviously, his dad is there, a part of that. And, he's got – Jason, you've talked about Zealand Young. I mean, hard to say underrated and quiet coming out of 2-5A. But if not for Ahmad Hudson, Zealand Young is kind of the top dog as far as that tight end wide receiver hybrid spot in that district. So it's at Ouachita Parish. So I think home field usually just means so much in 2-5A. We've seen that kind of be the case this year. It's that typical 3-point favorite at home.
Yep.
That's kind of how that tends to work out. And you mentioned their Lions skill guys. Dade, their running back, is likely starting or battling for a starting spot anywhere else in that district. And I don't think anyone else outside of Ouachita would disagree with that. He's really good. Y'all mentioned Wyndham Clark. He fits right in there with the top of that class offensively. And we all know about Dylan Berryman. It's kind of hard to get a gauge on him because he gets so much double teams and he's just right there. But he committed to Texas. And if you talk to people in that program, in Ouachita's program these days, Texas is still very, very interested in keeping him there and getting him into Austin next fall. So he's a challenge. It's kind of like, to me, it seems like Dylan turns it on a little bit when the lights are on, and when it's like if it's a 3rd and 7, all of a sudden you're going to see Dylan's best snap that you've seen that quarter. And he stood up and did those sorts of things against Ruston. Neville has been battling a lot of injuries, just minor things here and there, all throughout the this early part of the season. But Sean Fox, who covers them really closely out of the Monroe station there, he argues that Neville's as talented as anybody. Their coaching staff is absolutely as talented as anybody. Yeah. And again, y'all know this, but just to remind, Neville lost to Central in the semis last year, and then Central had that crazy day against Ruston. So, non-select D1, you put Neville at the top tier. the games at Washita Parish, I'd give a little bit of an edge to Neville right now just because I think the staff that they've had in place for the past few years, and I think the 2 deep that they've had in place, they replaced a lot. Jalen Nichols going to UNC last year. But through 7 weeks, they finally kind of backfilled some of that talent that left from last year. And I give the Tigers a slight edge just because I think they're prepped for this type of matchup in week 8.
When you looked at last week, what they did against Ruston was pretty remarkable. They pretty much held that offense in check for a large portion of the game. I love what that front seven was able to do, whether it was stunting, whether it was showing blitz, disguising. Their defense is deceptively strong. I think when you look late in the game, Ruston kind of rode the momentum. Kind of like you talked about on your show, Marshall. They kind of rode the momentum late in the game after that onside kick, and that kind of carried them through. But for a large portion of the game, man, Neville was just clicking on all cylinders, it felt like. And it felt like they could do no wrong. Another guy, Emad Sledge, who came up with 2 big catches in that game as well for Neville. He's, I believe he's a junior as well at wide receiver for that team. He's a pretty impressive guy. Parker Robinson obviously needs no introduction. I think that's going to be the biggest matchup going on the road for Neville is, can they continue to get out to a quick start, and can they hold on to it? Because it feels like that's kind of been what's happened to them over the course of the season. They get themselves in great position, and the game kind of falls apart. Where Washita Parish had to battle back last week against West Monroe, really made it a tight game at the end, and it kind of got away from them. So both teams kind of trying to fight their own nature in this game and see who can come out on top. But it should be one of the most fascinating games of the week.
Yeah, and go ahead, Cass.
No, you got it, dude. Go.
Yeah, look, I mean, to kind of piggyback on what you said, Jason, that defense, they lost those corners from last year, and so that was a lot of the offseason was replacing those guys that were D1 commits and college commits. So, but I think, like I said, through 8 weeks, whatever the concerns were about just replacing their 2 deep and making it look familiar, I think those were week 1 conversations. I think week 8 now, Neville has kind of put a lot of that stuff in place. And again, as they get healthy, they get deeper on both sides of the ball, more experienced. It's been talked about plenty about the onside kicks and how Neville's given up some of them. Without being on foresight this week, I have a feeling that was drilled pretty thoroughly in practice, just knowing that program. So, you assume those things don't start to happen. And like if you rearranged all the swings in Ruston and Neville, that's just a back and forth game that happened way out of order. The guys who were going to make their plays for Ruston made them. Same thing for Neville. So to have that score, you would look at that score and say, there you go. This is just what you expect. The order in which it took place, it was the thing that's just like, man, what happened?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense because you're absolutely right. If it was, 41-37 and just kind of your normal back and forth game, that's exactly what we would expect. But yeah, the way it happened was crazy. And on that Neville side too, outside of the game with Oak Grove, in which Oak Grove really just kind of ran it right at him and kind of put it on him, there's a lead in the middle of the fourth quarter on the road at STM. You have a big lead against Ruston, and that's your 3 losses. And when you talk about that staff and that program, yep, those guys are going to coach them up, and they're going to continue to get better and better and better. And it's funny looking at it. They're 4-3, but you don't want to see Neville on your schedule. You don't want to see Neville show up to your stadium, and I'm excited to see Washita, because how are they going to handle? I mean, the Ruston West Monroe Neville back to backs as tough as it gets. That's 2-5A, I think, in a nutshell. But can Matrell Connor, can they hold on to the football? Can they avoid the big mistakes? And on there, like, what happens if they do get a big lead on Neville? Are they going to be able to close the game out? And what happens if Neville races out early? Like, is Washita going to be able to? I'm interested, man. I think this is such an exciting matchup for so many reasons. But a really fun one going on up there at Washita.
Yeah, and one more thing on that one. Yep. Neville goes week 8, 9, and 10. Washita Parish, West Monroe.
That's right, and then it ended with
they get the flip. They get the
everything
flip
that I think that they figured out in 8 weeks. Now's the time.
And to your point, though,
we're going to find out.
To your point about Washington Pirates as well, they've lost 2 games this year. Both games they had turnovers. The only 2 games they had turnovers all season. So that'll be interesting to see if they can hold on to the football, not throw an interception, and you need every possession you can against this Neville defense and offense for that matter.
Yeah, no doubt. Elsewhere in 2-5A, Alexandria traveling to Ruston. Both teams are 6-1. Ash is 1-1 in district. Their only loss, a 3-point loss to West Monroe. Ash hadn't played outside of Destrehan, in which they won by 6 and lost by 3 to West Monroe. They haven't played a close game all year. They have been a machine up there for the Trojans. And then Ruston, 6-1, 2-0, obviously coming off of the victory over Neville. Their only blemish is to Stephenville out of Texas. Ruston maybe a little bit out of their comfort zone. They're playing a state team for the 3rd week in a row. It's nobody out of state, which I think is great. But this is an Ash team. When you think, at least when I think of them, it's offense, and it's not necessarily throwing the ball all over the place. It's their rushing attack, but their defense is giving up 10 points a game. And if they're going to go to Ruston and win the ball game, that defense is going to have to show up.
Yeah, I mean, it's as impressive as the offense has been this year, especially replacing JT Lindsay coming from last year to this year. The defense, going back to the spring, was what everyone leaving Butch Dover Stadium was saying, y'all get set for that defense next year. They got Bryson Phoenix. He's a newcomer. He's at Pineville previously, but he's with the Trojans now. I could literally give you the starting 11 on defense, and they all contribute. They're and probably 13, 14, 15 deep on the defensive side of the ball. Xavier White is their stud in the middle. He kind of is that Ray Lewis looking presence in that middle linebacker spot. He leads the team in tackles. But all they kind of spread the love around as far as what their talent on offense. Bryson Phoenix, like I mentioned, coming over from Pineville, he's with the Trojans, and then Jackson Townsend rounds out that linebacking core. They get a lot of the stats. That they get to really lay out a lot of the punishment on defense. And again, and we've got to move on from West Monroe, at some point. But just a few final notes from that game. A lot of people found out that Trez Davis was dressed out when the lights were already on at the stadium. He was kind of a late entry into that game, depending on who you were. Brilliant play call to give him 200-plus yards without having to jump, between the reverses and the screen passes. I mean, a fantastic game plan to get him loose against that defense. And I'm sure y'all saw the highlights. That was him. That was number 4 doing that. But to just, a great job by that coaching staff to put him in places to kind of pierce that defense. Ash has had at least 2 shutouts, I think, this season, both against Manny and Union, schools that years ago you would have scheduled that thinking, not sure what you see. Both of those teams at the 2A level are kind of trying to get their traction back to where we were used to seeing both of them for 2 years, for the past previous years. Pineville, they had them last week. They're able to get that done at home. And then West Feliciana the first week. So Ash's schedule has kind of put them in a situation where they truly will have to prove it on Saturday, going up to Ruston to make that trip. But going back to the offense, Cass, I think if there is, this is one of those games where I've been trying to just poke for the past 5 days, trying to find a margin of where this something might happen. Alex Fontenot is the leading receiver for Ash. He's got, I think, 12 touchdowns. He's had some big games. I've seen several times this year where, to me, he's the fastest player on the field on both sides. Slant routes, he got down the sideline against West Monroe. I mean, just really, really impressive. He's their guy on the outside. Jaden Anding, who got a pick against Ouachita, you can maybe assume that that's going to be a matchup that you'd probably want to get used to that night, Anding versus Fontenot. So that's a great matchup. I can't wait to see how those guys go at each other if indeed that's what happens. But if that is the case, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for Ash is going to be critical. Jakirian Griffin, Grayson Thibodeau is like a blocking tight end that kind of sets up behind the guards in their offense. He got a nice catch and scored last week. Kason Williams is they're kind of been their top back. Noble's been injured, Noble Williams, but he's back. He will be back for the first time in maybe 2 or 3 weeks this weekend. So maybe they get Kason involved in the pass game a little bit. Noble can get 10-plus carries for sure and really help that backfield. And Carson Sellers, can he attack the rest of this Ruston secondary that has given up some yards, been but not break type of secondary, but can other than Anding and Fontenot, which again, bring it on, what can Sellers do to find Griffin, to find Thibodeau, to find their other skill position guys in space against the rest of that secondary? I think that'll be important. And then going back to the Ash defense, you got Ahmad Hudson to deal with. Hudson was extremely patient against Ouachita last week. You just saw him just kind of working in between two defenders. And then finally, when it was his time to be 6'8", he was right there to do that. I think the Ash defensive secondary, and again, 4 guys back there, all good. Really a lot of solid depth in that defensive secondary. Got to stick to the plan with them. Are you double teaming them? Then fine, do that and stick with it. It's kind of like blackjack. You either hit on, whatever 16 or you stay every time, but stick to what your plan is, whatever that is. Hudson, there's a good chance he'll get 6 catches, 112 and a touchdown. But of course he's going to do that. So you got to stick to the plan with him and see if you can just kind of not let anything else crazy happen. But Ruston hosting that game, the Bearcats are really going to have an advantage again. I just big on home games in 2-5A.
But, Marshall, you pointed out last week how Neville was able to hit on some long passes with Parker Robinson and Imad Sledge. I kind of look at that kind of matchup as being potential here in this week with Griffin, as you mentioned. We know Fontenot is the big play guy for Ash. We know that he's been the guy that's I forgot what game it was. I believe it was Union Parish, where it felt like every play was the first 4 plays offensively were touchdowns for Alexandria.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like opening day, and I was like, all right, I think I've seen enough of this game, and I had to flip between the other 7 games that were on that night. But really, Alexandria's offense has been so explosive because they have so many guys. You mentioned Kason Williams, just sophomore back, really explosive and fun to watch. Quarterback play has been excellent. Other side of the ball with Ruston, we talk about so much about Powell at running back, and we talk so much about Ahmad Hudson, and it's for obvious reasons, right? But Josiah Morgan and Malcolm Keyshawn are really solid athletes as well at wide receiver. I think Hartwell, I discussed last week leading in, I said if they're going to win the game against Neville, he had to have he had to step up and make big plays. And I felt like that Neville defense did a great job of mixing coverages, mixing blitzes, and putting pressure, and it forced some errors. But really, when the time came down to it, he stepped up and made the plays needed. I was really impressed with his game. He ran the ball effectively on top of passing it to his targets. I think, again, his emergence is going to be massive in this game. So, being forced in that type of situation, how does that affect the way he comes out against an Alexandria defense that, as you mentioned, top to bottom, really impressive group. I really like Bryson Phoenix, a guy who I've pegged from before the season started as well. So this is really a fun one to watch. Once again, staying in 2-5A, where it seems like no matter how much we try to toss and turn, Cass, we always end up starting here first every week.
They lead the show all the time, for good reason. But when looking at this, 2 things stand out. When you look at Ash's roster, the players that we're talking about, they all come back. They all come back. Kason Williams, the sophomore, Carson Sellers, junior, Alex Fontenot, junior. That's just on the offensive side. So when I'm looking at this, can Carson Sellers find someone other than Alex Fontenot to score? But I think it's going to come down to what Kason Williams and his O-line can do. If they can run the football, against this Ruston front, this Ruston defense, they can control the game. And they can keep Ahmad Hudson on the sideline. So I think that running game for Ash, and look, they've done it. They've done it all year long. Williams comes in with 750 yards. He's got 90 carries. Say Noble Williams will be back, so he's going to have some help with him. Like that, I think that's going to be the story of the game. Can this Ash offense run the football and have enough success to kind of control the tempo of the game? We'll see. But you're right, man. That home field advantage is so important, in high school football anywhere. But in this district, with some of these environments and stadiums that are played in, it's huge. So maybe that might be the reason Ruston pulls it out.
Yeah, and again, I mean, Ruston having that being at Hall Garrett's huge for them. But Ash went to Destrehan, and if you watch what their defense did against that Wildcat offense, who has been scoring a bunch since week 3, since they took that loss in Destrehan. So that would be if I'm an Ash fan, that's what I'm looking is look what we did against Destrehan, and again, look what you did against West Monroe for 45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, and it's man, I'm just looking at the power rankings too for this. All of these teams are in top 5, whether it's Ash in Division I Select, Ruston in Neville, and Washita in non-select. This is some fun stuff. All right, let's get out of 2-5A for a second. And speaking of going home and home field advantage, East Ascension travels to Turlings Catholic, which, just at first glance is a great matchup. And then when you dig a little bit deeper and you have Coach Dane Chapanche, the offensive coordinator at East Ascension, was the longtime Turlings Catholic head coach, left just this year to go be the OC at EA, going back to the school where he went, where his dad was the athletic director and longtime football coach. And now I'm sure he made that move, looked at the schedule in week 8 and was thinking, oh boy, what is this going to be like? But East Ascension goes to Turlings Catholic. Turlings Catholic undefeated. They're 7-0. I really, really like their quarterback, Alice Munoz. He is a really good player, very fast, very athletic. He uses his legs as well, just enough, but it can also throw it. So this is going to be a good one down in Lafayette.
Yeah, Alex Munoz has been, I think he's got 25 total touchdowns between passing and rushing, and his threat as a runner has really opened up what they've been able to do on offense. And I think that initially there was another guy on that roster, AJ Price, that was supposed to be, that had kind of been tabbed as the QB of the future. Well, Alex comes in and they set things up to where they put AJ Price, out in a skill spot. And I think a couple weeks ago, Price actually on a trick play, Price got like a 40-yard pass completion to Munoz. So they're rolling on offense. They're averaging 45 points a game, averaging over 400 yards a game, and undefeated under first-year head coach Michael Corville. This is, more than they did get a win over Notre Dame earlier. Other than that win over the Pios, I think that this matchup with the Spartans is by far their toughest matchup of the year. Lance talked a little bit on Sunday night about Merriweather, just really coming into his own as receiver. And I love watching Bryson Martinez. I kind of started watching just his film, when I realized he was being recruited by LSU, and then now he's got rushing yards and passing yards. So
he got real stats now.
Turlings, the fan base is on fire right now. Obviously, there was probably a lot of wait and see with Coach Corbel coming in. First year head coach out of everyone that wants that job, that wants these big time jobs when they come open. What is he going to do? Well, he's got 7 straight. So he's got a great chance to host EA and try to go to 8-0. But I think they bring a lot of talent. I think, again, y'all mentioned Sunday that they're getting it done with a backup QB when they need to. So, lot of offense that they're able to spread around. Munoz makes them go. I mean, I think that's clear, just, how he's able to run that offense. But their defense is good too. They've been able to pick on teams where they've had a big matchup advantage, and what a great shot for them to get number 8 against the Spartans.
Yeah, their defense only giving up 10.7 points a game right now. And, I mean, that's some great numbers, but when you look at the physicality of East Ascension, that's going to be the big question. I don't know if Notre Dame has quite the size that East Ascension does, and East Ascension can do it, in a number of ways. I've really been a Jason Blackburn fan in the backfield of East Ascension. I've called his name a ton. Really kind of popped onto the scene on my radar this summer when he's running 4.42 40s, dominating at camps. Really has broke off with 3 touchdowns just last week in the game where you need him most. JJ LaBeouf, backup quarterback, who again kind of stepping in place off an injury, really looked impressive after we talked about it. Struggled. The offense really struggled against Prairieville, a team that's surprising a lot of people. And to Prairieville's credit, maybe not enough people giving them enough credit and attention.
Yeah, that loss all of a sudden doesn't look too bad now.
No, because look, and we're going to dive into them a bit later, but Live Oak's offense is really electric. Only scored 28 points, so with a backup quarterback trying to figure things out. But I gotta love the dynamic nature of this offense to put Briston Martinez, like you mentioned, Marshall, at Wildcat quarterback. Let's let the Fridge Jr. go running in the end zone. Let's let him throw a pass down the field. I love creative offense. It's one of the most fun things to watch as a fan of football. But the way that they're able to utilize their 6'6", 300-pound lineman is beautiful. It's a thing of art when you're talking about offensive play style. So I know Turlings, you mentioned Munoz has really been their guy, kind of do it all and do everything. I think the big thing is if East Ascension is able to zone in on him, how will they handle that? How will they be able to distribute the ball, and who will be their next go-to guy? However, what I will say is East Ascension has handled 2 back-to-back dynamic quarterbacks, and they both put up big numbers. So I think it could come down to a shootout. It could come down to a last series type situation. I don't know how it's going to finish, but I know how we get to that finish line is going to be a great ride. Yeah,
that's a great point, Jason, because Alex, I don't think he's had a game where there's not an outlier. There's not some game where, boy, he really got 60 yards, no touchdowns. Mm-hmm. This has been a pretty consistent effort for him, and you see it with those dual threat QBs. Like, yes, when they can run early, when they can get an edge set early, everything opens up. It's like a basketball player just hitting an early 3, just everything opens up after that. If he gets shut down early and it's where he is going to have to just pass, where they can't necessarily do some of this other things that they, if it's just not something that's going to work against EA, how can he respond from the pocket if that's what he has to do?
Yep. No, I think, and that's going to be the key for EA's defense too, is make him throw the football. If he's going to drop back and pass, keep him in a pocket. Don't let him get loose. It's not just the design runs. Yeah. It's the off-schedule runs that get you. 2 things that I'm interested in seeing here, though. With EA, and I know Coach Chaponche does not want to make it about him at all. He is going to have something for them. Like, he's got something ready. Like we talked about Briston Martinez playing all over the place. He is going to have something ready for them. And on Turling's side, I think this sets up well. They have STM next week. And I don't know what y'all know about it. I was in it for a little bit. That is a huge deal. And they very easily could have just overlooked this non-district opponent. We have STM next week. Let's move on. I think the fact that with Chaponche on staff, maybe it keeps Turling's attention and they get their full attention. So this is going to be a very interesting football game in Lafayette. Elsewhere, we'll go back up to the northern part of the state. And we've talked about our Mangum Dragons, Jason, the last couple of shows.
Mangum Dragons.
I don't know. I think we might have mentioned Ouachita Christian once, which is crazy to think because it's such a storied program. They're always a really good football team. They're undefeated. Ouachita has given up 3.7 points per game, and they're scoring 52.7.
That's not too bad, guys.
I'm not good at math. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I like my chances if we're going to score 52 and give up 3. This is a Mangum offense that's scoring 45 points a game. They come in at 6-1. Ouachita Christian obviously comes in undefeated. I think it's safe to say this is their biggest test of the year. I also think it's safe to say that they're going to be ready for it.
Yeah, this is by far, OCS, they'll get Oak Grove later in the year as a district game. In fact, I think that's week 10. I think they go
It's
Mangum,
week 10,
Faraday, Oak Grove. So it's time to wake up if you're an OCS Eagle, because they've been cruising. I mean, those numbers are exactly, they tell the story. And, you say that kind of maybe they go under the radar a little bit because, like I said, and I compare OCS. I know y'all are, South LA guys. I compare OCS to St. Charles, the way that they quietly reload that program.
That's a good comp right there.
The long tenured coaching staffs, the very tight knit, way that they run that program. Every detail is to the max, and the results show. So I think those programs are pretty similar. The Eagles went to the finals last year as the 11 seed and lost in the semis to 23 to the eventual state champion Southern Lab, which they just had a huge day against, I think, Riverside a couple seasons ago. But 2 seasons ago, OCS was the top dog in D4 select for most of the year, and they just ran into Southern Lab that, in the semifinals at Southern Lab, and they got that done. And then again, last year, I think it was it D'Artez for Vanderbilt Catholic?
Yeah.
Scored 8 touchdowns a game seemingly.
Well, I wish they wish they had him still around.
Yeah. How things have changed. So, but other than again, just kind of like Neville, you just realize like how close they got, and you kind of have to put them in that same tier. The Eagles are loaded on offense. Luke Bedreen, their quarterback, he's a senior. He started.
He's feel like he's been there for 10 years.
Second or third year start.
Third year guy.
Yeah. He's been there a minute. Jude Turner is the 2A Christian Pawnee. I don't know if he cares that I use that, but that's kind of how I see him. He's a really tough back there. And again, another vet. But he's the Monroe 2A version of what Christian Pawnee does for West Monroe. And then I watched their game against Beekman Charter, which was one of their 4 shutouts of the regular season. It was a Thursday game last week, so I got to catch it. Number 14, Luke Edwards, and number 22, Maddox Fitzhugh are humongous on the outside. OCS is multiple, so you'll see, one receiver on each side, a single back. They can run all kind of different stuff, and they do. But they were on their home turf last week, and those guys. They weren't necessarily empty in the bag against Beekman. They got that win in the first half and kind of moved on. But Edwards and Maddox, number 14 and number 22, if you get a chance to look at OCS, those guys in 2A matchups will absolutely stand out. They, oddly enough, OCS was supposed to go to 1A next year, but they've got a ton of talent on offense, and they always do. They sent a kid to Vanderbilt here recently, Tate Hamby. He's kind of waiting to crack the rotation, but they've got guys playing on Saturdays all over the place, and they can put guys in the SEC. They allowed 14 points to Caldwell in week 1, and that's the most they've allowed. So they're turf guys. They're made to get on that turf and start the engines and go. Mangum's going to grow the grass high. I can guarantee you that.
I love it.
Look, yeah, and having that on natural grass in Richland Parish is just what the Dragons want. Some interesting things about Mangum. They lost to South Plaquemine in the quarters last year, eventual state champion. Had they got through them, they would have had Logansport, winnable, and Haynesville, who last year was also winnable. Mangum made back-to-back at least trips under Tommy Tharp a few years ago. So, I mean, they're as good as it gets in that bracket. Their coaching staff, let me run through this for you real quick. Scott Wilcher's their head coach. He's been the defensive coordinator there since 2003. He was the D coordinator from 2003 to 2019, and he's been the head coach ever since. So he's been there, since the Bush administration. Kenny Bell played at University of Alabama. He's coaching. He's an assistant on that staff, and he's got 2 sons that play. And I think one of them is one of their producers on offense. Kevin Davis, who had a short tenure at West Monroe and resigned, I think in like December of last year to usher in the DeMichael Dizer area. He's on that staff, coaching up the Mangum Dragons. And then also Bo Meeks, who was at Airline up until maybe 3 or so years ago. He's also coaching in Richland Parish. So they've got one of the best staffs, in that area of the state, especially for a small school. It's not much for people to drive over from Monroe to that part of Richland Parish, and so they always have they always have a good football program, and regardless of this game, Mangum should get to 8 or 9 wins. I think the rest of their regular season schedule is teams that they've had success against in the past few years within district. So looking at 8 or 9 wins for Mangum, looking at 8, 9, maybe 10 wins for OCS. A great test for Mangum, and a great shot for OCS to kind of tune up a little bit for what they have to do very soon, which is play Oak Grove and then play all these other, football factory private schools that are built just the way they are, and which is to win games, past Thanksgiving.
You hit on a big point, which is, or both of you guys did, right? Washita Christian's only giving up 3 points a game. I will say that's kind of a nod to their strength schedule up to this point. And you play who you play. I'm not saying one thing either way about it, but this 3-game stretch for Washita Christian is crucial because this is going to set them up for their playoff run, whatever it may be. And I think Mangum's offense has been really, really done a great job, and they played their biggest test of the year. You could argue it was last week against Oak Grove, but really wouldn't play Gina, which is a fantastic football club. We're going to talk about them next, but scored 48, I believe it was in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, look, they got a sophomore quarterback in Colby Casey, who's kind of splits numbers, gets around like 120, 130, kind of both on the ground and through the air. So they like to kind of mix up the way that they use him. And like you mentioned, Marshall, Kenny Bell is the freshman. He went for $107 on 4 carries last week and 2 touchdowns. So pretty nice day against one of these staple programs in the entire state.
He needs some more carries. Carries.
I mean, I guess he's earned some after last week's performance, but this is a Mangum team that has both these teams are kind of in that same rung where they've been around the block. They've been to that opportunity. The difference is OCS has come away with the title, and I think this is a great opportunity for Mangum to make a statement, and not only a statement just in terms of watch out for us, but getting those PowerPoints. This is a big PowerPoint opportunity for this team. And, man, the Dragons. Come on, Cass. We've been talking about them all year. Like with the
Purple
team,
Dragons,
like,
baby.
We got Eagles, right? We've got Eagles. We got like 2 Dragons in the state. So Mangum's trying to rep those Dragons out there.
Stay tuned. I've got some Dragon content in a minute. Stay tuned for that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in. We're all in. Speaking of PowerPoints, Jason, and on OCS's side, I don't know this for a fact, but I can probably assume they don't, not that they don't care, but they don't care. They were the 11th seed last year. Like, they know what they are. They're the 12th seed right now. They're undefeated, but they're the 12th seed in Division IV Select. A win here could really, really boost that seed. And if you're Mangum, you're a 4 seed in Division IV non-select as it stands right now. A win over an OCS team that's going to end up with 8 or 9 wins if you beat them. That's the difference in traveling in the semifinals and hosting a semifinal. And that is huge. So you're right. This game is big for district implications. But at this time of the year, you start looking at power rankings, man. This is big time game up there.
And to your point on that, Cass, if there's any program in the state that can somehow prepare for your Thursday or Friday opponent while also preparing for every school that you might potentially face in D4 Select, OCS is the school to do it. Right. They've got like an 8-team district or 7 or 8-team district. So that part of the schedule is set for them. They sometimes have a hard time finding games.
Absolutely. No, that's tough.
So, and that's the case. I think they have like General Trask and maybe Madison this year, teams that haven't really been playoff teams here recently. So, but they're used to that. So
right,
they take the district schedule that they get. They'll add whoever wants to play them in non-district, and like term I used, 13 months out of the year, they are putting something. They've got something going on in that coach's office to prep them for anybody that they might Ascension Episcopal, any of these teams that are kind of riding high in D4 Select right now, OCS has something for them here coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. They will be prepared. That's for sure. And they'll also probably be practicing Thanksgiving week. That's just what they do. Speaking of mascots, Jason,
Tom, hold on. Before we go on, I do want to say, please make sure to like and subscribe, guys. We appreciate all the people that we have had watching, and of course, our guest Marshall. Please go ahead and follow Red River Roundup again to continue following his content. He does excellent work. I've gotten to listen to his work recently, so. Again, please like, subscribe, follow, and of course, go follow Red River Roundup while you're at it.
We've been talking about doing that for at least 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
we finally remembered. Well, you finally remembered. I was going to jump right into the Gina Giants, baby. We're going straight. The Gina Giants go to Bunkie. I don't know Bunkie's mascot.
Panthers.
The Panthers, the Bunkie Panthers. But this is, again, at least down from our point of view, a sneaky good football game. A Gina team that just scores points. They're averaging 51 points a game, and you have a Bunkie team that just plays defense. They give up only 10. Bunkie comes in undefeated. Gina at 6-1. One of the state's leading rushers, running back Cedric Wilson for Gina's got 1,045 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns. They also have another back in Daniel Hatcher with 819 yards and 12 touchdowns. So it's an offense that can get after you on the ground, going up against a very formidable Bunkie defense.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Alexandria and in Ruston for big parts of my life, so that game's huge for me this week. But dadgummit, this one, Gina at Bunkie this Friday, is going to be a really good game. It was 41-0 Bunkie last year at Gina.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Talk to Coach Jimmy Hillman, the head coach of the Bunkie Panthers. You know, he pointed to some just backbreaking timed penalties. He pointed to some turnovers. He pointed to some other weird things that basically made him say, don't even talk to me about 41-0 last year. Don't talk to any of my players about 41-0 last year. But it's two teams that they go their separate ways. Bunkie's technically a magnet school, so they hang out in the select bracket once the playoffs start. But I mean, you know, they're a public school and they play that way. So they'll host Gina, and Bunkie brings shotgun 4 wide Zion Lee. They've got a Brady Wright, a quarterback who's been able to just kind of command that offense. You know, he hasn't really had much trouble giving them to that scoring average that you talked about, Cass. Brady's got 1,100 yards and 11 passing TDs. Zion Lee has just about, he'll go over the 1,000-yard mark. He's got about 950 and 20 touchdowns. He scores them early. I've watched him a couple times this year. And again, just out of that, he stands right next to Brady Wright, and he'll go off tackle. He'll go straight up the middle, and he's just extremely effective. He's committed to the Naval Academy for next season. Ron Patterson, he's their wide receiver. He also is like their lockdown cornerback, but he's got almost 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. So out of that shotgun, they replaced a lot of their top offensive guys from previous years. But I think that Jimmy Hillman's tenure at Bunkie, it's right around that time, you know, year 2, year 3, where your junior high program is how you want it to look. Your JV program is how you want it to look. And so now he's just taking that jersey number and giving it to a sophomore, and that guy stepping up and doing it. That's kind of where Bunkie is right now, both on offense and defense. Lucas Mose, that's a guy on defense that they literally have put at all 3 levels so far. He is lined up for a snap on D-line, linebacker, and back in the secondary so far this season. He's their punter. He's got a ton of experience. Another one, Luke Norman, he's got like the school record, 360 tackles out of the middle linebacker spot, over 40 starts, according to Coach Hillman. And then I mentioned Ron Patterson's. He's their lockdown corner. Gina has a good receiver, Zadrian Cooper outside, that they get the ball to out of that veer, and I'll talk about Gina's offense here in a minute. But Patterson is primed and ready to match up with Zadrian Cooper on the other side and try to slow down Gina's offense. Gina's averaging, I think, by my math, 54 points a game so far this year, 417. Bunky, shotgun, 4 wide receiver. Gina, Jason, you know it, split back veer, where everybody's hanging out in the backfield, and then Cooper's on the outside, mostly blocking, waiting for his opportunity. Daniel Hatcher, he's super talented. And really, since a couple seasons ago, Gina had Zarek Jones, who was everything in that backfield. He's at Grambling State now and was that kind of guy for Gina. Ever since then, ever since he left, they've done running back by committee. And I know that Ced and Daniel have been basically this year, they were the same last year. Cedric Wilson and Daniel Hatcher were just as effective last year. Deuce McPherson is their QB, and you know what he's going to do out of the veer. So he's got, he's got rushing touchdowns, and he's got over almost 800 passing yards. So he's able to get the ball. He's talented at the QB spot. We watched him play against Ouachita actually at the Bayou Jam, and he was able to get the ball to Cooper on the outside when he needed to. Hatcher and Wilson, just, pick which one's coming at you. Daniel Hatcher's brother, actually, Jason Hatcher, who's older than, he's in his 40s now, played for like the Washington, they were the Redskins back then. But so Gina has actually put a guy in the NFL before, and it's Daniel Hatcher's older brother. So they're stacked on offense. They've got a really talented offensive line. I think this is Roark's 11th year as the head coach, and I think their offensive coordinator has been there for most of that time. So that's another coaching staff that they're all in, they're bought in, they know what to do, year in and year out. So it stylistically, it's really good because it's two teams that play each other. Coach Hillman said, they know everything we're going to do. We know everything they're going to do. We're both going to try to throw in a little bit of some wrinkles here and there. And Coach Hillman likes the improvement that he's seen on his O-line, but he knows that he's going to bring man-to-man defense at him. So it is interesting. Gina and Buckeye, they play every year. They've been in a district together for as long as I can remember. But right now, stylistically, they're very different. Bunky's going 4 wide, and the Giants are doing what they're doing out of the split back veer. Bunky got, again, 41-0 last year. It's still crazy to look at. And they get it. They get it at home. The Giants, this is a wood game for them. So they're, they're coming. But it'll be great to see those two offensive styles matched up. Two defenses. Bunky's defense is really fast. I definitely noticed that. They use speed to win battles, at least from my amateur opinion. But again, really, really good matchup of styles between these two offenses that have both been scoring in bunches.
Typically, when you talk about a split veer type team, and Gina does run the split veer, but they do tend to call it pre-snap a lot of times too. It's not as much like you'll see.
Not a lot of reading going on.
Yeah, like it's not always. Like you will see them go speed option, you will see them go split veer, but they do tend to do those pre-snap kind of set calls. But typically, when you see a team like this, you think, man, they're going to run the clock. And in this matchup, Cass, what's my favorite thing to say? You got a team that runs the football. You run down the clock. You play defense. You get, you limit possessions. But Gina's a high-scoring offense. Yeah. It's like you don't really see that very often with a split back type of offense. To your point, the backs on this team have been doing a great job as well. But Zion Lee for Bunky, I've been a really big fan since the summer, committed to Navy. Just absolute freak running the football. He ran for 6 touchdowns I think it was either last week or a pair of weeks ago. Yeah, also instinctually at linebacker, man, he's really fun to watch when he does get in that linebacker. There's no false steps. There is no false read. He sees it. He knows where to go. He hits the hole on the snap. Honestly, we've talked a lot about Tyree Darrensburg out of Chalmette. I think Zion Lee, as a pure instinctual linebacker, might be one of my favorites in the state to watch play. But this matchup, because of that little bit of rivalry built in, because this is a benchmark game for both teams. Cass, you're talking about this is a game that not a lot of people are paying attention to. Maybe out here down south, but out there they know how big this game is, and I think that's because we tend to get in a little bit of a bubble in South Louisiana, but this is a really big game out in Central Louisiana, and they know about it. So it's important for everybody to pay attention because Bunkie is a team that is in that select part of the bracket, and we have a lot of select teams out here. So there's a team that you could see down the way.
Yeah, and I just love it because it's stylistically both teams, they're successful doing it their way, but when you see them on the field at the same time, I think that brings another element to it. Yes, the fact that they know each other, they know what they're going to do, but just the fact that Gina's going to go out there with 2 or 3 backs in the backfield, we're going to punch everything in, and then Bunkie's just going to spread it out and try to throw it all over the field and on you and spread you out that way. That's going to make an interesting matchup, and you better believe. I know maybe Coach Hillman didn't want to talk to you about the 41-0, Marshall. You better believe he talked to his guys about it. Those dudes are going to be ready to roll.
Yeah, I wish I could be there. I mean, it's going to be a great game, and you hate to see someone lose, but neither one of these teams wants to lose this game, especially since, like you mentioned, they got a couple more weeks of important football, but they want to get this one.
Yep. All right, we'll toss it over to you, Marshall. Well, I'll say that. I do want to ask a question about we'll hit some more games up there. Parkway and Shreve. Less about maybe both of these teams specifically, more about that district as a whole. The points that come out of that district, man, it's crazy. And I know like there's talent, there's offensive talent, there's defensive talent. Is it something that like they just get going and you just can't stop it? Or I mean, it's basketball on grass. I mean, it's crazy what happens week in and week out up there.
You nailed it. It's offensive talent. We talked to the Loyola head coach, John Sella, a couple weeks ago. He's not in 1-5A. He's in 4A there with North DeSoto and Northwood. But he played at Shreve, so he knows that brand. And I asked him straight up, it's like, what is it? Tell me about the life of a D coordinator in 1-5A. Yeah. And really, so this is. He didn't give me the answer this simplistically, but this is kind of what I've gathered, especially being at Louisiana Tech and seeing the athletes that they would either recruit or end up getting from the Shreveport area. It seems to me that this is, again, putting it as simply as I can, they put their best guys on offense. Yeah. So, when that manifests itself is if you're airline, if you're 5 wide, well, you've got 2 guys in the slot there that would otherwise be really good cornerbacks, or could do something else on the defensive side. They load their talent on the offensive side of the ball in that district, and I asked him again. So, like, what is it? How did D coordinators define success in that district? And he talked more about film. Just grading and see what defenses do, but they don't. Head coaches aren't sitting there just beating down their D coordinators because they give up 46 points against Airline or because it's some shootout between Evangel, and Parkway or something like that. But and there's a few outliers. I mean, Pop Houston right now, right. It's going to be a few years before you see something else that looks just like that.
Mm-hmm. Even at Airline with Darby.
Yeah. And Kenny Darby, he's an LSU recruit. I've seen him the past 2 years. He just goes up and gets the ball when he wants it. Yeah. He's as good as you think he is. And I mean, it goes on and on. Even Ziegler at Benton, they can't really get in the win column that much, and he's top 3 passer in the state. It's the way that they set up those rosters. They like it that way. They've got that many schools in the district to where that's just what they have to do all year long and maybe get one game out of district. So they're cool with that. They're and another thing it goes back to offensive talent and, just how that, like I said, how they put their best football players on offense. Another thing is that Dennis Dunn offense. That Dennis Dunn offense is all over Shreveport. It's at North DeSoto. It's at Calvary. It's at Airline. It's, portions of it for sure at Evangel. But that Dennis Dunn offense and kind of what's developed out of all the things that he's done in his career, his imprints are all over Shreveport Bossier, and that's kind of why that ball looks the way that it does, at least right now. Yeah, no,
that makes total sense. That makes total, because when he was doing it at Evangel, he was the first one to do it. You know, they're putting their quarterback 7 yards back, and then he's got coaches that go all over. Yeah, no,
exactly. He's got a coaching tree with a couple branches over that kind of tri-parish area for sure.
Real quick, I do want to ask you before I got a question from Lance that he posted, but we haven't gotten to talk about Tioga at all, and really Tioga is a team that I've really enjoyed watching. I watched the game that they played against Gina earlier in the year. Kervin Johnson, Louisiana Tech commit, really impressive player, wide receiver for them. Can you tell us about that Tioga Indians team? And we do know, for those who don't know, they play in 4A, but because of those weird district ways, they have to go play in Division I non-select, and that's going to be that's tough to do. Plus, you're battling power points because you're playing 4A while everybody else is playing 5A. So that's a different discussion for another day. But what do you like about this Tioga team, top to bottom? Because they can pass, they can run, and of course, when you got a guy like Johnson at wide receiver, that's a whole different ballgame.
I like their offensive line. I like the way they look, running out of the tunnel. First-year head coach Dan Chrisman, not only a track and field guy, and he's won some hardware as a track and field coach. He's an O-line guy. This is his first year as a head coach after a really successful tenure from Kevin Cook. But he takes over, and he's got that O-line really at a spot where they can do what they want to do on offense. Case Malone is a quarterback, veteran, started for sure last year, maybe even got some starts or some snaps the year before. Kenny Pontier is one of those power lifter running backs, kind of similar to Christian Pawnee. And then you mentioned Kervin Johnson, who hopefully will be a Tech Bulldog here in a few months. But their O-line allows them to kind of do what they want to do, on offense. An experienced QB who can run and pass, and he does. And they've got some turf over there at the reservation. But Tioga, they've got talent. And like you said, they're a true 4A public school, but they're in a select parish. Mm-hmm. And we've seen before in that parish that there's some selection that takes place. There are some players that you may not realize that actually played ball or have some background in Tioga. That you may not have realized. So they've got, it's a really community that's full of all kinds of, people that can make these teams go. Their basketball team's usually good. I think Peabody actually had some success recently with some guys that have some experience. Anyway, Tioga's they've got talent, and they can, they can get through this. It's a great district with Wassman, FP, and Tioga in it, West Washita as well. So that they'll get they'll get Peabody this week. They should be able to handle that one. They could be with Franklin Parish week 10. That could be an 8-1 matchup between those two teams. I don't remember where that game's being played at, but I know it's week 10. So Tioga and FP could be really, really good here in a couple weeks.
And we got a question from Lance. So Lance,
the question of the night.
Pull it up. Look.
Question of the night.
Wait, hold on. I'm struggling here. There we go. Lance had to ask, right? Lance is a big uniform guy. Said, who's got the best uniforms in the Red River area?
Oh, man. So
Field's going to get hurt.
Look, I mean, the Gina Giants black and gold, obviously. Ash Trojans, purple and gold for sure. It's probably got to be either Ash or Gina. I mean, Ash has those whites that kind of look like what LSU does when they go all white. Those look really good. Another one, I know y'all love those powder blues. Technically, it's Red River. It's right on the Red River. Loyola College Prep. They got the baby blues, but they also got your boy Snoopy that they get to. He's right there at midfield. There's some story about how they get to do that, but Snoopy's at midfield, and they got those baby blues. Flyers, one of the coolest nicknames, one of the coolest mascots. And they're up there on the Red River, so that's a really, really nice set as well.
Did you see that? That story popped off on Twitter recently. Like somebody posted about it. It got like 100,000 views. Somebody made the team on on college football 26. It's all over. they kind of took off. But yeah, Charles Schultz, somebody wrote a letter and he designed it and he sent it. And they still use that same design. That's a really cool
awesome
story.
Another really cool one, Lance. It's not quite in the Red River area. It's up in the Delta. Oak Grove, black, white, nothing on the helmets.
I love
nothing
that.
Anywhere else, it's
it.
Like the Raiders are fancy compared to what Oak Grove does. It's intimidating.
I mean, if you're gonna wear, especially when they go all black, if you're gonna wear all black, like you better be good with nothing on the helmet. They play the part, that's for sure. They do a good job. Also, like Ouachita Christians, they still go gold helmet.
Yeah, they're
green
clean.
with
They're really
pants.
good look.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what I think. You remember Notre Dame when they used to wear good uniforms? Then they had the dark green uniform. The Kelly green is terrible. The dark green with the gold is a clean look. When they lost to USC on the Bush push.
Bush push, yeah.
Yeah, like those uniforms are some of the best in college football. But for whatever reason, they ditched for Kelly green. That's a terrible choice. But what do I know?
That makes you upset.
It angers me. This is one of the best uniforms in college football, and you waste it.
You ruined it. Marshall, man, that was a whole lot of fun, dude. Whenever you want to come, we're gonna do this again. We'll definitely for sure. Maybe during the playoffs or whatever. Preview for some games in the dome, but you're welcome back whenever you want, man.
Yeah, and look, I want to just thank y'all so much. I mean, I reached out to y'all. I figured I'd start something this fall just to kind of really just try to recap the Sinlaw area and then before we knew it, we've basically got the entire state covered on Saturday morning. So I just wanted to reach out to y'all just to see what good looks like and and try to just see how to recap everything that happens. I love the LHSA. For all its faults, I love I love supporting the communities that prop up programs. And, there's a lot of rural spots in Louisiana, man. When you see a community build up a football team and they're at this time of year where they're 7-0 or 6-1 or something like that, it's awesome to see. And, and thank y'all so much for being gracious for me. We just, it's like the mall, the food court was the best when it had all kind of restaurants and you had options everywhere. So we just want to be Red River Roundup. We want to be another one of the restaurants at the food court, where all the cool kids hang out. And so it's been fun to sit at the table with y'all this evening. I just love covering this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I know the stuff that y'all do up there. It's fun to follow, fun to watch, and y'all do a great job. And these communities, like you said, the communities around the state, they deserve it. The kids deserve it, and it's fun to follow. We've had a blast, but man, we appreciate you hopping on here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, dude. Have a good one.
Yep, y'all too. See you soon.
See you. That was a lot of fun there, Jason. Getting some insight from up in the Sinlaw area, up in North Louisiana. Marshall does such a great job covering that side. I mean, they hit on all the state, but really focusing on up there. So we'll turn our attention a little bit, maybe a little more down south here for this last couple of games.
Before we do, Cass, we want to like and subscribe, share, subscribe, share, everybody. And I did want to point out we had a comment from Z Cheese. He's been reaching out to me again. Really appreciate his support. He's been reaching out for weeks. Said finally a week where you won't have to talk about LCA. Well, we talk about them real quick. They're real good. They're real good. They're a real problem. Again, there's only so many ways you can say it. We're not going to dig into their matchup this week, but yeah.
No, but wait, because they have one next week that we just might get into. So enjoy. If you like it, Z Cheese, enjoy it because it's back next week. No, they are. Yes, they are. Well, that is one way to put it. They are real good. Speaking of real good, this program's been real good for real long. It feels like Acadiana 4-3. They dropped their first 3 games of the season. They go to Southside. That is at Southside. Southside has their home stadium. It's called the Reef. One of Jason's favorites. That is awesome. But Acadiana, man, they 4-0 in district. All 4 of their victories have come in district. Southside's also 4-0 in district. Acadiana loses their first 3 weekends. They go Ruston, Zachary, STM. Not the easiest paths. Probably should have won the STM game. They had a lead late. STM come back and wins. They roll off 4 straights once they got in district. And outside of the Barb game, in which they won 49-42, the games really haven't been close. And this feels like, since they've played STM, their biggest test until they get to Karen Crow in week 10. And on Southside side, what an opportunity they have to make a huge statement against, the program that's run that district, the program that's really, outside of maybe STM run that area. They get to welcome them in their home stadium. This is going to be an electric night in Youngsville, Louisiana.
I misspoke a few weeks ago. I said Southside beat them last year. They did not. So Southside finally got their first taste of blood in the water 2 years ago. They beat them for the first time. They're 1-5 against Acadiana.
Yep.
Acadiana has run the area for quite some time. The interesting thing when you look at Acadiana is the way they started out the season. They were slowly trudging along, and a lot of people looking around like, man, there's a lot of problems. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to fix. They seem to have fixed it. Now, you could argue maybe that schedule wasn't as strong as the beginning. However, you have to understand, too, when you're under new leadership, you have new pieces in place. They lost a lot of guys last year.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Colin DeBetta also moved to quarterback from what I've seen on tape. His brother was the former quarterback. He's got an offer to Nichols, really dynamic player. And you have to keep in mind Travis Gallion. He was a guy who just got cleared by the LHSAA to play.
Did he play last week, or is this his first?
So he got cleared. To my notes, he got cleared after week 5. So
Okay.
he's been. I know he caught like an 80-yard touchdown a few weeks ago. He's a dynamic playmaker.
That would have been So he played against Barb in week 6.
Yes, I believe so.
That's right. But
defensively, Darius McKinley, who his brother Dominic plays at LSU. He's a baller. He's a really physical defensive lineman. You also have up front Jackson Hiltz, a big guy, 6 foot, 245, and Troy Kennerson. Yes, 5'4", 155. Not the biggest guy in the world, but really lightning quick. Has really been doing an excellent job. Southside, Shamar Broussard, that linebacker spot, really great instincts. He can sniff out the play really quick. He attacks exceptionally well. Emmanuel Collins, D1 guy, is committed right now to Louisiana Tech. I know Marshall's probably happy about that. He's a guy that can go up and grab the football. Justin Williams, their running back, over 1,000 yards on the season, ran for 240 last week and 4 touchdowns. This is 2 very similar styles.
Yep.
That's what I think is going to be interesting coming into this game. When you look at, they give up nearly the similar amount of points, 25 for Acadiana and 24 for Southside. Southside scores 7 more points a game. So I don't know who has an edge in this one. I know if you're talking about experience and has been there, Acadiana, but Southside as a team coming into the year had a lot of expectations. They're going to see if they're going to live up to the billing here in this big Week 8 matchup against the team that they really want to beat.
Yeah, this is like they're looking at a mirror. This is going to be mirror images of each other. They both want to run that veer. They're going to be physical. They're going to come right at you. There's not going to be many secrets. It's going to be the team that plays the most physical and executes the best. But, yeah, like you said, Acadiana from a program perspective obviously has the experience advantage. It's Southside feels like they've been kind of building to this moment. Now, can they beat Acadiana to take the next step and get over that hump? And if you're Southside, look, I know this is a huge game. You also have Karen Crow the following week. So this is a big back-to-back weeks for a team that came in that, their only losses in week 1 to Notre Dame. So they've won 6 in a row, and now it's Acadiana, Karen Crow back-to-back. So it'll be interesting down there in Youngsville. Down in your neck of the woods, Jason, we've got St. Charles finally plays a district game. Finally plays a district game. That's crazy. They host Belle Chase. Belle Chase comes in undefeated. St. Charles is 6-1. And I know we've talked really a lot about both of these teams. On the Belle Chase side, Amari Ambrose, a 3-year starter at quarterback for them, and they have Dylan Cotter, another senior running back. on the St. Charles side, Landry LeBlanc, the junior quarterback, is making his this is his second year starting. Skylar Edwards, they're running back for them, man. That's the one outside of the typical defense and special teams of St. Charles. Skylar Edwards, I think, really separates this St. Charles team because of his athleticism, because of his big play ability.
This offensive line's done an underrated job for St. Charles. Edwards has to run behind somebody, and that offensive line has done a great job pushing teams aside. This Bell Chase defense has given up 4.5 points a game.
That's crazy.
Coming into week 8. Now, I will add the clarifier. Have they played a team of St. Charles's caliber? No. Have they played St. Charles's schedule? No. However, this game came down to the wire a year ago. Both teams know this is a big win within district. Both teams still have Shaw down the line on their schedule. And Cass, to your point, the secondary for St. Charles might as well be a separate part of the offense because Dax Prajon returns at one for a touchdown a week ago. I believe he also Brooks Monica returned too. Yeah,
Brooks Monica has a pick 6
against Dunham in that Dunham game where they needed 2 defensive scores. But looking at the other side, Bell Chase, Amari Ambrose, that quarterback, does an excellent job operating that offense. Dylan Carter, but really, the strength is that defensive front. You have Savion Bartholomew, who's committed to Texas State, 2-time all-district guy. Logan Jackson, a big guy up front for them as well, who's got some offers, an all-district guy. This defense they know what's coming, right? They can only give up 4.5 points a game. They're not going to be shocked by what St. Charles comes out and tries to do. The question is, how will their offense move the football against them? And even with knowing what St. Charles does, having that familiarity, can they slow down this run? And for St. Charles, are you going to take advantage of special teams again? Because that's been a key to quite a few of their games this season. How are Bell Chase's special teams going to compare to St. Charles? And will that come into play in this game? That's the big questions.
Yeah, no, and I feel like this game it's kind of similar to the game we just talked about in that you have one program who's been there, done that for so long, and not that Bell Chase is a new program. They won the state championship, 15 years ago, or 08 was I think when they won it.
Sounds
so
right.
They've been there and they've done that, but not lately. And you look at their schedule. And, they have 4 shutouts, and no, it hasn't been the best, but that means they're coming in with a ton of confidence. If we go back to last year, they came into this game undefeated as well. St. Charles beats them by 1 point, and then the next week they go to Shaw and they get beat 54-7. This year, is it going to be the same story? Are they going to be undefeated, lose a tight one, and then they got Shaw again next week? So is this – not that this Bell Chase team needs to go out and win both of these games back-to-back to prove themselves, but can they stay competitive? Can they be in it and kind of show that they're ready to take the next step as a program?
Similar to the OCS discussion we had earlier. My statement is not against Bell Chase as a program or a team. They've done exceptional. They've done their job, right? You can only play the teams that are on your schedule. Right. However, it would be disingenuous for me not to state this is the best team that they played yet this season.
Yeah.
But for sure, like you said, last year came down to the wire. Really fun one. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Elsewhere, and we got District 5A. This district, again, we talked about how fun this one was last week or on Sunday. You have Prairieville. All of a sudden, who you look up, they're now 4-3. They're 3-1 in district. It's still almost surprising to see that. They traveled to Denham Springs, 5-2, 2-1. Denham coming off a big win over Dutchtown. Denham has won 3 in a row. Prairieville has also won 3 in a row. As you mentioned earlier, they beat Live Oak last week. Prairieville did 32-28. Prairieville only has 2 district games left. They have Denham Springs this week. They go to St. Amant the following week. So a big 2-week stretch for this brand new program in Prairieville.
The Hurricanes have to feel confident. They've come in with 2. They came into the season with 2 wins as a program from last year. They've doubled that number. 2 including against district opponents in back-to-back weeks that have offenses that can put up points that are really staples. right? Live Oak, a team that's put up a lot of numbers offensively, you hold them to 28. East Ascension, although they were dealing with some injuries, they had some issues regardless. Prairieville controlled that football game. And a lot of it had to do with quarterbacks, Kelly Schuyler, who has run the ball exceptionally well. He hits his targets. Taj Wallace in the backfield, sophomore running back, really a big playmaker for that offense. On the flip side, though, Denham Springs is one of the more understated teams in the state. I know they're 5-2. They did lose a district game to East Ascension, but they give this East Ascension team that we've talked about has one of the best coaching staffs in the state. Their offense off the charts. Brenton Paul, I think, is going to be a big key in this game. Running back for Denham Springs, big playmaker. We know Denham Springs can pass the football. You got Deshaun Goldman, who he can hit his brother out in the end zone, right? Deshaun Goldman, he can run the football as well. But I think Denham Springs' running game is going to be important. But another guy we haven't talked about, Cass, Hunter Ray, who is a tight end for this team. He transferred over from Live Oak this past season. Big target, really can make plays in that passing game. And they like to utilize him, put him at wing. They move him around really well. I think the big key to this one for Denham Springs, yes, they need to get their offense rolling, but maintaining possession, keeping Skylar Kelly off the field, and Brenton Paul, I think is going to be the big key, the running back for Denham Springs behind that big offensive line.
Yeah, no, this is definitely, this Denham Springs team. And I think maybe one of the reasons we kind of, not that you overlook teams that are in this district, but we're still waiting on one of them to make a really deep run in the playoffs. And that hasn't happened for whatever reason. And I think once one of those teams can do that, because this district is extremely competitive, very competitive. They're all well coached. They're all kind of the same, and I think that's what makes it fun. And then when you throw Prairieville into the mix, man, this is going to be a fun one out in Denham Springs. But yeah, that Prairieville's going to be confident if nothing else.
Dutchtown made it to the semifinals a few years ago. That was that crazy game, if you remember. The weather came in and they had to pause it. It was against.
They stopped. Yeah,
I can't remember who it was against. It was Zachary. It was against Zachary, I believe, and it was a semifinal game. And they had to pause in the middle of it.
I think they were winning.
Shifted. Yeah,
they were winning when it. Yeah, that's right. No,
had the game finished out, we could be talking about how they made a dome run a pair of years ago. It's you don't know how momentum is going to play into that game. So that's a good point. This is a district that they have the teams. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like, subscribe, share.
That's right.
Again, we appreciate those of you who are still with us, who are still watching. Again, we love the support. We love hearing the feedback, both good and bad. But if it could be more good, that'd be great. But also, I promise I'm a harsh critic. So you can't say anything that I'll be offended by. I'm much harder against myself than anybody else is.
No, you'll be all right. Yeah, throw those comments in too. Y'all comment, ask questions. We're here for it. Y'all,
we finally figured out the comments, guys.
We did.
After 8 weeks. We got the comments. We got it. We
can even put it up on the screen. Look at us. We know what we're doing. Professionals. Speaking, I don't know how we transition into this, but let's go under the tank. Under the tank in Kentwood, Louisiana, Southern Lab travels to Kentwood, two of the more tradition-rich programs of 1A football in Louisiana. Southern Lab comes in at 3-4. They've lost 3 straight. One of them being to Denham Springs teams that we just talked about. Kentwood comes in at 4-3. Their losses are one of their losses to an undefeated Jules Sumner team. So this is 2 programs that challenge themselves against bigger competition outside of district. This is their first district game this year. These 2 teams met twice last year in the regular season. Kentwood lost 13-8 at Southern Lab. They met again in the 3rd round of the playoffs under the tank, and Kentwood won 50-32 before falling in the semifinals to Vermilion Catholic. So it finally feels like they're playing against, playing in the same weight class, so to speak, after doing so much out of districts. These last 3 weeks of these seasons really going to tell us a lot about both these teams.
That's why this game is always such a question when you get to it, because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Because both teams have been playing such a wide variety of talent. Southern Lab went down to the wire with Madison Prep a few weeks ago. Kentwood, to your point, you just mentioned, played against Jules Sumner. So I do know I really like some of these offensive weapons for Southern Lab. Dexter Ricard, sophomore quarterback, who some beautiful passes when you turn on the highlight tape, but he also has some great targets. Anthony Weatherspoon, all-district guy. He's a senior this year. Really does a great job when he gets the football in his hands. Denham Hunt, another guy as well, a big playmaker. This Kangaroo defense gives up 20 points a game. I think that's going to be a key to this one. Southern Lab's offense has, considering the teams that they've been playing, have done really well. When you look at a lot of these guys playing both ways for both teams, I'm interested to see this is going to come down to which team can outlast the other, because you have guys playing both ways. It is a 1A team, right? I talked to Coach Kevin Dyser earlier this year, and I casually asked him. I said, "So, are you guys going both ways?" He said, "So, what do you mean?" He said, "We're a 1A team. Of course, our guys are going both ways."
They all do.
So,
you mean some people don't go both ways?
Yeah. After that terrible question, I was like, "That was a really dumb thing to say," but it also proves the point. Like, these 1A programs, they don't know any other way for the most part. So that's going to be interesting to see, like, down the stretch, which team is better conditioned, because that might really come down to who wins this ball game.
Yeah, and they're very similar. They're both extremely talented. They both score about the same amount of points a game, 26 for the Kangaroos, 29 for Southern Lab. They both give up about the same, 20 and 25. But again, some of these numbers also can be a little bit skewed just from the competition they faced outside. So it really does feel like we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams this week, although it is already week 8. We'll touch on 2 games down in the Catholic League, District 9 5A. First one we'll talk about is Brother Martin at St. Aug, game being played at Tad Gormley. St. Aug comes in at 6-1, 3-1 in district. Brother Martin is 5-3, 1-3 in district. They have lost 3 straight games to Rummel, Carr, and Curtis. This feels like a pivotal game for the Crusaders, and just as pivotal for St. Aug to continue that momentum and continue to play well. St. Aug's only loss this year is to Carr. This offense led by Bashan Kulon and Miguel Whitley at receiver for St. Aug, so explosive. They come in averaging 45 points a game. On Brother Martin's side, the defense is giving up 32 points a game, something that Coach Bonice would like to see drop a little bit. But an equally explosive offense with Hudson Fields at quarterback. Obviously, you have Easton Royal at receiver and, Rowan Lipscomb at receiver as well. So offense that can hurt you in many different ways. Really just hadn't been seen to get on track lately.
Don't forget about guys, it was Bashan Sims and Raekwon Williams at receiver for St. Aug.
Yeah, we could list their whole roster.
Keith Hill at running back. Like, look, we can go on and on. They have so many guys. Brother Martin's defense gives up 32 points a game coming in. That's a big concern when you look at the way that the St. Aug offense is built. Went toe-to-toe with a really strong Rummel offense last week. Won it unconventionally from the style of football that they typically play. Miguel, I talked about that guy so much, but again, I've gushed about him over and over. But again, I would argue top 3 receiver in the state. Really just – he's a guy. He's a dude on a roster full of dudes. So, but again, you're going up against maybe one of the other top 3 receivers in the state, Eastern Royal for Brother Martin. So St. Aug's defense really underrated. I think they proved that against Rummel last week. We've talked about it a bunch. My question is, if St. Aug takes out Eastern Royal, will they find ways to get the football to other playmakers, and how will they respond in those situations? So we know they've had big plays. Again, they had to come up big against Jesuit to win that game with a late field goal. But St. Aug's defense has done a great job up to this point. Royal's going to get his 2 or 3 plays? Can somebody else carry some of the burden? And can their defense slow down the St. Aug offense?
Yeah, no, and I think from St. Aug, the way that they beat Rummel says a whole lot about this team. We knew they could score. We knew they could be explosive. But to win the way that they did with defense against Rummel, very encouraging if you're a Purple Knights fan. Also in that district, you have Rummel and Holy Cross. Holy Cross, a little bit banged up going with their backup quarterback. Got on track last week against Warren Easton after losing 3 straight. Keyron Smith, obviously one of the best backs, not just in the area but in the state. And then you have a Rummel team coming off of that loss to St. Aug. And, you'd like to see them kind of get back on track. But again, that's just life in a Catholic league where there's no get right games. There's no easy wins. This is, we talked about the Brother Martin game with St. Aug, that being a pivotal game for them. They're all pivotal, especially at this point. But this is a game, can Holy Cross continue to win the way they're winning with Keyron Smith?
Yeah. But the big thing is these two teams are built similar. Uh-huh. Holy Cross and Rummel both rely on their defense. They both lean on their running game. Holy Cross is a little bit more banged up, to my knowledge. Rummel's offensive front is really big, really physical. Cole Todd for this Holy Cross team has done an excellent job. Their Holy Cross's defensive front in general. They also have Savoy Guidry as well, looking to maybe try to take out the best receiver that Rummel can put on the field. Raymond Hughes, Eddie Connerly, Jules Bartholomew for that offensive front for Rummel, leading the way for Jaden Terrence and Corin Hawkins. It's going to come down to which offense can stay on the field longer. Who can hold on to the football, maintain possession, and ultimately I think that's who's going to win this football game.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. If the team that turns it over or doesn't turn it over is going to be the one that wins, and maybe a big special teams play. One more that I'd like to just mention, because I find it, digging through some power rankings, I find it kind of odd. But you go to Central at Liberty. So Liberty team last week put it on Zachary. I mean, really kind of put it on Zachary. They had 672 total yards. They're 4-3, and if the playoffs were to start today, they wouldn't be in the playoffs, which was crazy to see. And then Central coming off of their game with Catholic. Can this defense of Central figure it out enough to slow down this offense of Liberty?
That's the big question. Liberty's offense looked so explosive a week ago against an undefeated Zachary team, really opened a lot of people's eyes. Zayden Foster at running back for Liberty has not gotten the notoriety of some of these other guys around the state. He's a senior back, probably should be getting a few more calls than he is. To the offense's credit for Liberty, they found unique ways to get the football in space. They put 8 on the line. They put Connor Nair at receiver, and they put Foster in the back, and they said, let's see if you can stop us. And they ran the football. Then they'd go 5 wide. So the way that they were able to manipulate the defense of Zachary, force them to make some mistakes that they defensively, maybe alignment, maybe overzealousness, putting 6 on the line, trying to blitz. But to your point, Central's defense hasn't looked as sharp as we would have expected coming into the season. This is a big test for them. This is an offense, as you mentioned, Liberty put up 600 yards a week ago against the Zachary team that a lot of people going in were saying this team probably one of the front runners to win the state. Maybe some people kind of take a step back on that. I still do think credit where credit is due. Liberty is an underrated ball club. But regardless, this is one of the more fascinating matchups of the week.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, you talk about Central needing to win it. Liberty right now is a 27 seed in Division I Select. They need to win the game, just not just for the district race, but to ensure that they play in the playoffs. With that's wild. That's wild to see. Any more, Jason, that you would like to touch on before we check out?
How about we do speed run? Okay, let's go ahead and do speed run. And when you want to jump in, you go ahead, Cass. Look, Dunham, East Feliciana. This is another ball game. Dunham, look, their biggest game so far this season has been St. Charles. East Feliciana kind of coming in with another opportunity, right? Ryan, Boog, Moore, Really impressive guy. 5 interceptions on the year. He's got 600 yards receiving, 300 yards rushing. But on the other side of the football, man, Elijah Haven, Jarvis Washington, who's a top-tier wide receiver, South Alabama commit, Trevor Hammond, Chris Thomas. They have guys all over the field. So can East Feliciana find a way in this one to disrupt what Dunham has gotten going is a big question.
Yeah.
Look,
I was going to go. Where were you going next? Okay, you can hit that. I was going to go Catholic Point could be St. Edmund.
We'll go that one. Go ahead. Take it away.
Well, just Catholic Point Capee comes in. They're 6-1. Their only loss is to Westminster. St. Edmund's a team that's averaging 53 points a game. They're also 6-1. Their only loss is to Opelousas Catholic. This is a huge game in District 5, 1A. Can Catholic Point Capee slow down to St. Edmunds? This offense for St. Edmunds, the Blue Jays have led by Nathan Zombracker. Nobody can slow them down. So can Catholic Point Capee? It's their chance. Can they do it?
Jude Morrison and other guys, well, over 100 touchdowns in his career at Catholic Point Capee. Cassie's done everything. He led the team in interceptions 2 years ago. I mean, he kicks, he punts, he does everything for this team. So really interesting to see these two offenses go at it. St. James Donaldsonville, finally a district game for both of these teams. Donaldsonville's defense has really been impressive. Their only loss has been to Bruley, but Bruley has a similar style offense to St. James. St. James likes to air the ball out. Jaquias Villanova, Jaquan Jackson at quarterback. You also have Kanye Zenin at receiver. Really a dynamic offense. You also have Jaden Villanova, who can also line up in 3 or 4 different spots. Donaldsonville's defense has been really impressive so far in the season. So the big question mark coming in is, though, can this defense that's given up only 9.7 points a game continue to slow down an offense in St. James that has gotten off to some slow starts and moments? So can St. James not allow Donaldsonville to jump ahead early, and can they put their foot on the gas from the jump in this game? Is the question.
Yeah, no, this is two teams that they're kind of similar. I just think St. James may be a little more battle tested. St. James playing Shaw, playing St. Charles, so we'll see. But I think this one has all the makings of coming down to the wire, similar to the St. Charles game. Very similar to that. Anyone else? What you got next?
Look, I'm going to go, like I said, I'll go speed run through a few of these. Covenant Christian Jeanneret, big District 7 1A ball game. Probably could be for the district title. Owen Trosselaar, Covenant Christian quarterback. Connor, forgot the young man's name, but running back for Covenant Christian went down early in the year. Owen Trosselaar has been their guy, 1,200 yards rushing, 830 passing. Jeanneret's also suffered their fair share of injuries, really kind of figuring it out. Should be an interesting one. Ascension Catholic, North Iberville. Dude, North Iberville has athletes all over the field. Ascension Catholic had their back, Trevin Simeon, go for 519 yards, 7 touchdowns a week ago. But North Iberville, Justice Roy, 790 yards passing, 250 running. Jeremy Favorite in the backfield. And the D1 guy, Ray-Jean Melanson, who is just a playmaker on both sides of the football. That'll be an interesting one to watch as well.
Yeah, going back just to that Covenant Christian team, I got to see them early in the year. They were extremely impressive. Just being not even just by saying that they're a 1A team, they were extremely impressive no matter what classification they're in. Just they were physical, they played hard, they were athletic. So that's one to watch, and they've challenged themselves a little bit out of district. So can they kind of get on a roll and go get a big win at Jeanneret?
And 2 more, and I'm done. I'm shutting up. I promise, guys. Look, this game, Westlake taking on Lake Charles College Prep, 2-5-2 ball clubs. Some of the best quarterback, running back dynamics you're going to see in a matchup in the entire state. Brody Anderson, really a big fan, big lefty quarterback for Westlake, really likes to sling the ball. Back Braylon Garrick, 680 on the year, 11 touchdowns. On the other side, man, Aiden Carter, one of the top 5 rushers in the state. runs a 100 meters in 10.66, runs a 4.4240, blazing speed. Quarterback Dylan Vitale, major baseball prospect, 2,600 yards on the year. Could be a lot of offense in this one. Expect it to be a fun one. Jennings, a team we have not talked about, getting their chance to go on the road to take on Notre Dame, who's kind of licking their wounds after a big loss last week. So Jennings, a team who has not gotten a lot of attention, but really should be a big game to see. Big Nate Broussard up front, 6'2", 300 on that defensive line for Jennings. Going to look to slow down this rushing attack with Drew Lejeune and Bryce Duhon for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's going to be ready to go. After what happened to them last week. So that is a big game. Jennings, a proud football community. They're going to be this is a non-district game as well in Crowley. Jennings at Notre Dame. Well, if you're still watching, man, we really appreciate it. That was awesome. That was
the longest show we've had. So again, if you tuned in from start to finish, we appreciate you. We appreciate you for putting up without Lance too. So it was just no doubt. It was the two of us for a good bit of it. So
yeah, no, that was fun. And like Jason mentioned, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter, or X as they call it now, I guess, and YouTube. You can also catch us on VSN, both live and on demand. So we appreciate all the feedback and all the support that we've gotten here. And we also like to thank Marshall Leffler and Red River Roundup. That was a whole lot of fun to get a different perspective. There's a lot of people that do a lot of good stuff around the state for high school football, and he's one of them. And what they do up there is definitely should not go unnoticed. So y'all go follow them as well at Red River Roundup.
At River Roundup, guys, he needs some follows. Go follow this guy. He does great work. So go check it out.
No, really, really, really good stuff. So what a show, man! That was a blast for a Tuesday night. We got a big weekend, week 8 of the prep football season. We will see y'all again on Sunday to recap what promises to be a very exciting week 8. So for Jason, I am Cass. Thanks for watching Talking Ball, y'all. We will see y'all again on Sunday.